So it is a really difficult decision to make for any organization, choosing a CRM solution, finding something that suits everybody's needs in the business. And what I would really like to just convey today is some ideas for how you can either confirm what you need, or some ideas and practical tips about how to go out and either do this yourself or get help in the right direction. If I have done my job correctly, you may be in a better position to sell the idea of CRM internally, help people see where those benefits are, and also you will have a very clear idea of what's really critical to your business and your teams. So what do we mean by CRM? Well, CRM encompasses many things: marketing automation, sales pipelines, service and support. It can be a number of things to different types of organizations and sectors. And so one of the key things is to really understand what's really different about your business. What are your company competencies? What is it that you do fantastically, and therefore you need a business solution to help support you with that? If you think about Amazon are really good at getting lots of products from A to Z. We know that they do this swiftly, efficiently, and therefore they must have tools behind the scenes that are helping them achieve that. So for your business, is it your customer service that sets you apart? Is it the fact that you have very complex products and services that you have to configure and make sure that you get the right thing to the right time, the right thing to the right customer on time? What is it that really sets your business apart? Is it the strength of your relationships, your network, the way that you communicate with people online when they come to your website? So trying to identify the key things that make your business different is going to help lead you in the right direction with your technology solution. And of course, we all have worked in lots of different places. We may have come from a company previously where we used a particular CRM, but that CRM was maybe selected for a different size organization, a different culture, a different, breadth of skills in terms of the people that work with you. So when we're looking for technology, we have to also consider how ready are we to take on a new technology? How much do we already know about what we need? Have we got people at a senior level that are going to help support us in the selection of our system? Have we got salespeople that are actually going to, want to learn about this, and we're going to provide something valuable to them? Because most of the time, if you think about it, we've got PowerPoint. If we want to create a presentation, we go and use PowerPoint. There's no argument. If I need to do something, some maths, I might use Excel. Nobody argues whether they should or shouldn't use Excel. When we come to CRM systems, there's so much choice out there, and actually there's a lot of resistance. And if you imagine that resistance, it's mainly down to people issues. If I put too much data in the system, who's going to be nosing and seeing what I do? Management want lots of reports and analytics. I don't really care. I just need to make my number and get my commission. Marketing are getting tracked on how many leads they've generated, how many event invitations they've sent out and had accepted. We're all being measured on different things. And so when we're thinking about technology, we need to think about what's the culture, what do we have to get, what do we have to give people to make them think that this tool is worth using? And so a lot of CRM systems do fantastic things with pipelines, activity management, task management, but that often isn't really the thing that gets your sales teams especially excited. I think it's an easier sell for the marketing team, but then you get those kind of silos where marketing may be passing things to sales and then they get missed and sales don't follow up. So when you're thinking about implementing your new technology, it is going to be a transformation of your business. You have to get people on board. You have to get people excited about what's possible. And actually, if we're not excited enough and we don't have enough compelling reasons just yet for why we need a new CRM, then it's going to be really, it's going to be like pushing a rock up a hill. We're going to find it really hard to get that momentum going. And so finding your kind of allies in the business and finding out who could really benefit from a new solution is part of starting that journey. So if you're not hungry for change, if you haven't got enough people wanting something different, then it is going to be hard to implement anything. even if it's, creme de la creme, Salesforce or HubSpot, whatever CRM it is, if people are not on board and people don't see that they're going to get sufficient benefit in their role, what they're being measured on, what they're being paid for, then it doesn't really matter what CRM you've got, in all honesty. Another thing is that often, it might be a CEO or a managing director or an owner who needs this, to maybe get more investment, who has an exit strategy in 5-10 years' time, and they have the vision of where they need to be in terms of technology, but they haven't got enough appetite amongst their different teams. So again, it's about finding the individuals who can be your champions, who can be your allies in your search for a CRM. And often that can just come down to asking people, what is hard about what you do? Where do you spend a lot of your time? Where are you wasting time? Where would your customers be really happy if we could do something for you in a technological way that just makes your life easier? And often we don't actually know enough about how people work to be able to come up with those kinds of ideas in a language or a way that means something to them. So I would suggest that even just going out and shadowing some of your members of your teams, shadowing people that work in sales, spending time with the marketing guys, and just trying to get to understand how they work can be a really invaluable way to pick up feedback in those areas. Of course, we can talk to them, and we can ask them questions, but actually sitting in their shoes and understanding how they work is imperative. If we don't have enough hunger all around, then it's going to be really hard work, whatever you do. And also, that doesn't just mean, one team. For example, some of the companies I'm working with, it's often the operations team or the data team that are kind of driving these need for a new CRM these days. And actually, they have a lot of reporting and analysis to do, and they understand that they need real data, that they need accurate data. But sales and marketing are maybe more removed from that. So the questions that you have for them and the benefits that you're going to have for your marketing and sales teams are going to be very, very different. So it's almost like you're having to go and rally up people, get them on board, get them excited about where they could go with this technology. And you can also learn that from just seeing what do people get excited about in general. People love games, people love, working on LinkedIn and getting, certain connections through LinkedIn. What other things do they need to just make their life that little bit easier so that it doesn't become a bump that they have to cross, an obstacle for them? It needs to be something that helps them in their daily role. When you're thinking about how ready you are for your CRM, even before you've started gathering requirements, even before you've started asking those questions, can you tick off some of the key things on this list? And everybody talks about senior level buy-in. I still work with many organizations where the CEO and the MD and the owner don't log into the system. They have a VA, they have a PA who does that for them. So as much as we'd like that to be the case, actually the most compelling implementations and the ones that really work are generally in smaller organizations where the CEO and the owner really do commit to the CRM, and they really do want to get hands-on, and they really do want to be able to run their own reports and analyses. The other thing, as I said, are these compelling reasons. What would really make the difference? If you went to people and you said, well, what would make you use a CRM? What would make you spend 2 minutes extra putting a contact in with the right email address and the right job title and the right location? This is what I can give you if you do that for me. And often people just they hear the benefit. The marketing team will tell us, well, we're going to do, lots of great content for you. We're going to get lots of, new leads for you. But people don't actually feel the difference or see the action in reality. And so what we want to do is make sure that for every piece of data we're asking our sales teams to add, that they see that benefit and they are going to get, insights into how that's helping. Whether that's better qualified leads, whether that's more leads, or whether that's just, more brand awareness of your product or your service. The other thing is it might not be you that's ready for change internally. It might be that your customers want a better experience. Perhaps you know that every time something gets delivered, it gets lost. Or perhaps you know that every time your customer calls in for customer service, you don't have enough people to help them and support them. So it may be customer feedback that drives that change, and therefore we also need to make sure that our team's aware of the importance of that customer feedback. So coming up with that vision, thinking about what really makes the difference, often just means a simple question. If we had the right CRM and we were all using it properly, what would be happening? We'd probably get less phone calls of people being annoyed about something that hadn't happened. We'd probably get less internal issues, better communication. Just coming up with that list of what isn't happening and then having a vision of what would be happening can be enough to get people excited about that vision. And then, of course, what's the price of leaving things as they are? Well, quite frankly, if other organisations are out there and they're using their CRM better, the chances are they won't leave their leads on the side. They won't forget to follow up with people. They'll have better marketing that sends out content automatically. Other people are doing these kinds of things, and so whether we like it or not, we may be compelled to change. But of course, those are all external things. If we can actually get that vision and that excitement internally, because we know it's a good thing and we know that good things can happen with the right technology, then I would suggest that that would actually allow you to implement faster and in a more streamlined way. The external stuff is somehow still kind of removed from our day jobs, unless we're on the front line for customer service. So when you're thinking about CRM, assuming that you've got those kind of cultural things in place, assuming that you have got that buy-in and people are ready to share their experiences, then gathering formal requirements is a very, very important step. Of course, if you were going to buy a new car, if you were going to buy, something that was a substantial investment like a house, you'd spend time thinking about what are the things on my wish list? What is an absolutely must-have? What are the things that I'd quite like to have? What are the things that I really, really need and are important to me? I'm never going to go out and buy a really expensive sports car because I don't really care that much about, what the car looks like. For me, security is important, fuel consumption is important, so I'm going to be steady Eddie on the car front. When we're thinking about CRM, we similarly want to think about similar things. What are the things that we categorically have to have this system doing for us to ensure that we can do the things that we say that we do as a brand or as an organisation? How can we make sure that we're not going to get, lost in the cracks? So gathering formal requirements it can take, it used to take months. It used to be months of workshops, everybody in a room, everybody telling us what they do, and that could be, quite a long, drawn-out process. Nowadays, if you're a small company, it could take weeks to gather your requirements, as long as you've got the right people in the room, as long as you've got, the right vision and the right idea about what you need. So it isn't that you have to spend months or weeks doing this without any kind of result, but the key thing is that you've thought about what those requirements are and why they're important. Generally, when I'm talking to companies, everybody says, I want sales pipeline management. Yeah, I want good reports. I want analyses. I want all these kind of things that, are pretty standard. The things that are more tricky to find are the things that are really different for your sector or your industry. So, for example, if I'm talking to a company in manufacturing, inventory management, the ability to make sure that you've got a really good eye on your stock, those are critical things because there are lead times involved. There's a criticality about that end of the chain. So if I were looking for a solution for them, I would be looking for something that's really got strong stock management, inventory management to it. In other industries or sectors, relationships are critical. Building relationships, making sure that you know who your referrers are, who your key influencers are in your sector. And so the front end of the chain is more important. So we'd be looking at something that does lead management really, really well, because there's no one solution that does everything really, really, really well. You have to compromise, but it's knowing where to compromise and what are the things that will be the key thing for your organisation. Having worked on lots of implementation projects, things go wrong, and often that's because requirements have been poorly understood. People didn't really know what was required, and so getting people involved in that requirements gathering process documenting them, feeding it back to people, keeping them, involved in, this is what we heard that you needed, this is what we think the key capabilities are that we need from our system. Would you agree? What do you think the priorities are? And so running those workshops is not just about designing a new system, it's also about bringing people on that journey and that vision of what the system or solution will ultimately be. Also, when you're implementing, you want to make sure that everybody knows their role. They might have a big role, they might have a small role. We can give them tools, and we can use different tools to kind of gather those requirements. It might be as simple as an Excel spreadsheet of all of the requirements that you must have, should have, could have. Ideally, it's likely to be process charts, not necessarily every single detail, but just the process charts or the processes that, again, are critical to what your business has to do well to be successful and survive in your sector. So just going through the most difficult processes, getting everybody on board and helping them see where all the overlaps are between teams, where you're moving from one system to another. I work with many organizations that have 40 or 50 systems, and they're using all of those systems, and yet the CRM doesn't speak to any of them. And it can't necessarily speak to every other technology solution in your tech stack, but there might be critical ones that it should speak to. So again, it's working out, this is my jigsaw of all these different software applications, which are the 2 or 3 pieces that are underpin everything, and how do I get something that connects those well, or that they integrate really well from the start. So you don't necessarily need to throw out every single solution that you've currently got, but it is about understanding which ones are the heart of what we do, really. So must-haves, should-haves, could-haves, will-not-haves. We'll never have this solution because it costs too much, or we'll never have this requirement met because it really is long-term vision. It's too far away for us to really have a real need for right now. But knowing also, what you must have and what you will not compromise on. For some organizations, that might be, they have to obfuscate or use encryption to hide certain data because it's so private that, the things that they do. For others, it might be everybody does need to see everything, and therefore it needs to be really public, and we need to be really open. So understanding, what those must-haves are from the start is going to really help you have a clear focus when you're looking at the different solutions out there. There are hundreds, there are thousands, and it depends on, what is your approach? Do you want to build something from scratch? Do you want to build skills in-house from scratch, but use a system that is a platform that other people can configure without code? Do you want to go down the configure-only or the code-only approach? How keen are you for everybody in the organization to use it, or is it just going to be a select number of users? And so again, your culture is going to determine some of these aspects. You may have been an organization that's used lots of freeware or open source software in the past, but you actually know that in order for you to grow and meet your goals in the next 5 years, you have to formalize things with more of a platform and something that's maybe a bit more solid and has better analysis for you. There are tools out there to help you manage requirements, so you can look for requirements management tools, and those will often also help you with testing. So they allow you to capture your requirements as very simple records, and then you can put those together into test plans for user acceptance testing, for example. So again, even when you're capturing and documenting what you're doing, you always want to think about how can I make sure that that helps me later in my implementation. So requirements management tools are also helpful. At the end of the day, the big thing isn't which software system did I use, it's which is the one that helps me get really into the details of how my business works, how my sector works. It doesn't have to be industry specific, but it has to be configurable to be able to allow for the things that you do. I was talking to somebody earlier, and they're in the marketing space, and there really aren't that many CRM solutions that understand the idea of marketing retainers, whereas that's the bread and butter for any kind of marketing agency. Getting revenue recognition is still pretty hard. Having a proper product catalogue and being able to create beautiful quotes and proposals easily is still something you have to kind of pay extra for in many cases. So thinking about, what's the really detailed thing for us? Is it the contract that we give the customer? Is it the way that we do customer service? Is it the experience that we give someone the first time that they fill something in on our website? So understanding what details really matter to us and our processes and our vision for where we want to be will help drive that solution on the CRM side. As I said, it takes time to come up with these requirements, but certainly weeks or months well spent without wasting your implementation money is always going to be a better idea. And I would try and do as much of that internally yourselves rather than bringing in too many people from outside, because you know your business really, really well. You might need a guide, you might need somebody that will step you through how to do these things because you've never done it before. But ultimately, gathering requirements, I would argue, is your job as an organization, not an external company, because you know your business really well and you can actually speak to one another and double check and validate that the requirements are well understood. Also needs to be in language that you understand. It needs to be in everyday language. This is what I need because I need X to do Y. Rather than sometimes it can get pretty technical and people get into solution mode too soon and they already have an idea of what it should look like. And it's more about what do I need and what is the output from my process that's important. So there are always going to be compromises, as I say, but these process flows will help you. From the process flows, you can define your individual requirements. And, you may come up with 300, 400 requirements, and that's quite a lot. So again, working out how are we going to prioritize? Are we going to do this with, team by team? Will we do it product or service by service? What is a reasonable way to introduce this level of change, bearing in mind that you're going to be, changing some quite fundamental things in your organization? I'd also argue that rolling out lots of things at once is pretty hard work. It's tough. It's not that the technology can't do it. It's that we as people can only take on, a certain amount of change in a certain amount of time. So I would say the minimum rollout would be 3 months for anything, just to implement a sales process, just to implement some lead generation, just to implement something on the customer service side. But ideally, it is going to take a good 6-9 months for any organization of any size to bring in change across the whole of those. It's quite challenging to do that in 9 months, but I have seen organizations do it, and also remotely during COVID too. You want to see lots and lots of demos. You want to get lots of ideas about what's possible. And, demos by software vendors will be beauty parades. They'll show you all the great things. The best time that we find out what it doesn't do is when we really start asking questions about, okay, well, if I wanted to do that in my organization, can it do that? How would we do this? Really get into that kind of questioning mode about how this software could work for you. And don't be afraid to throw things out quite quickly. But again, coming back to the requirements, if you've got your hot list of your must-haves, your top 10 things or your top 5 things, it really, really has to do well. Find those out first and find the solution that does those really well. It might be that you've got some constraints in terms of your financial system. There's no way that you're going to move from Sage. There's no way that you're going to leave QuickBooks, whatever that is. And again, that will help you put some boundaries around your choices, because otherwise you could choose from hundreds of CRM solutions. But when you start putting down the must-haves, when you start putting down the guidelines in terms of what it must integrate with, then it will start reducing your choices and you'll get to it faster. Just some ideas about sites that you can have a look at. Definitely look at sites like G2, Trust Radius, any kind of comparison sites, if only to just find out what it doesn't do. People are really good at saying, it doesn't do this. And that might not be important for you, so it could still be the right answer for you. But understanding the things it doesn't do well will help you get a better feel for whether it's worth viewing or seeing or not. And then, of course, ask questions. Not what CRM have you got, but how is it working for you? What is it doing well for you? And where does it fail? And again, you can match that to your own list of requirements as to whether that's going to have, be a similar issue for you. Test drive, test drive, test drive, test drive, test drive, test drive. you can never test enough. If you need to test for an extra couple of months, don't commit to a solution if you are not convinced that it's right for you, and don't be afraid to have gone down a certain route and then turn back. Far better to do that quickly, and then choose something new. But ideally, if you've done your requirements analyses well, you won't be in that position. Just some things to take into consideration. It's not just the cost of the CRM, it's the support for the CRM as well. That's important. And then all we're looking for at the end of the day is happy customers. But to have happy customers, we need happy staff, happy employees, have good solutions and technology that works for them and makes life easier for them. Sorry, that was a bit of a whistle-stop tour. If you have any questions at all, do come along to my CRM Cafe on stand D50. I'm here tomorrow and today, of course, and happy to just have a chat informally about any issues that you're facing, and can follow up with you after. Thank you very much.